Welcome guys. In this video, I'm going to show you how to disassemble your Zipper V2. We're going to go over a full disassembly, changing out the weights and balance configurations, cleaning the bearings, reassembly, and then tuning. So to start, we'll take the hardware pack that comes with the Balisong and we're just going to dump everything out. And then take off the bite marker. Take the 2mm hex wrench and unscrew these two screws at the base of each handle. Now that those are unscrewed, I'm gonna grip the Balisong and just flip it over so that I have access to the pivots. And I'm just gonna unscrew each one. I like to push my finger against the hex nut so it doesn't pop out. And then I'm just gonna place it back on the surface. And I'll gently remove each handle scale. At this point, I'm going to show you how to change out the weights. So if you have access to some needle nose pliers, you can see the Balisong ships with the tungsten cube in the base of each handle. So you can just take your pliers and take out the cubes. You can see there's a little slot for the needle heads. You can just gently take those out. You should have 6 magnets and 4 spacers. So the way to install these, we'll start with the 6 magnets. You can attach the magnets to your hex key just like this, and then we'll just gently pop them in. What you might find is that the square nut set into the base of the handle actually was attracted to the magnets. So if that happens to you, you can take your pliers, pop the square nut back in. You can use the hex tool to push it. And you can see it's popping out because it's magnetized. So at this point, we'll just take that handle screw and just gently screw it in to prevent the square nut from moving. Cool. So now I'll pop in the magnets. And you can see I push down and then I just slide it out. Boom. Now I'll do the other 3. This is personal preference. When I use the magnets, I like to have them repelling each other. So I'm gonna just test that my magnets are repelling, and they are. So this is the right configuration. And I'm gonna do the same thing. And you can see my square nut came loose. So we're gonna bind that down as well. Push it in and screw. Check the repelling still. Yep, I've got it right. And boom. So the steel is less dense than the tungsten, so that will change the balance. You can also change the number of steel magnets you have in there. So we'll take them out by resting the hex key on top and just lifting. If it's too tight, you can always just pull them out with the pliers, just like the tungsten cube. So you have these plastic spacers so you can adjust the weights without having anything rattle. So let's say we want to use only 2 magnets. You'd put the 2 magnets in, and then you could pop in the spacer. Let's say you wanted to use just 1 magnet. Put the magnet in, pop in another spacer. And you can do that for the other side as well. The spacers are only there so that the magnets don't rattle around. Boom. And now, if all you wanted to do was change the weights, you could just reassemble right now. I would unscrew these, put the handle scales back on, and you're good to go. One last thing to note, there's a spare hex nut set inside each handle. This is purely so that if the nylon in your hex nuts wear down and you need to replace it to keep the thread locker in good shape, you can. It also acts as an adjustable weight. So the easiest way to get this out, there's two ways. You could take something sharp, this is a gun cleaning pick, and you can just pop it out, or you can take out one of your pivots here. It'll look like this, and you can just gently screw it a few threads, and it'll just pull right out. These are pretty light, but because they're set at the base of the handle, they have a lot of mechanical advantage, basically a lot of leverage. So it is noticeable in terms of adjustable balance. So that's how to change the balance on this thing. I'm gonna put the tungsten cubes back because that's my preferred balance. I could just dump these out. That'll work better. And the two cubes you can just pop in with your fingers. They should sit nice and tight. Just press them in. Okay. So what's happened is now my bearings are out of alignment. So this is a great opportunity to show you guys how to actually fix this. Each zipper has 8 of these race washers. And there's actually 2 different types of race washers in each one. And let's see if we can find them here. So these race washers have actually 2 very slightly different diameters. There's a race washer that has sort of a flat surface right around the inner bore. Point that out. This flat surface that I'm pointing to there. If you see those are actually there's 4 of them, and they're the only race washer that will actually fit in the counter bore. So I can push those in. And I'll take it out now to show you. If you try to put the other type of race washer in the counter bore, it's too big, it won't fit. You won't be able to push it in. So don't try and force these in. They should just snap in fairly gently. If you force them in, you could damage the counter bore and your zipper will not flip correctly. But these bearings that have sort of the flat area around the counter bore, they're gonna be a little different than the bearing on the left, which has like a rounder, narrower edge on the counter bore. So the key there is these race washers have to be touching the blade, whereas these race washers have to be set inside the handles. So the easy way to test that is if the race washer fits in the blade, it's gonna go in the counter bore, and then it's gonna be touching the blade on the other side. So these race washers that are facing down are that same type. And it's really important that you get that right. They're different diameters, and if you mix them up, your zipper's not gonna flip right. So be diligent, always test that you've got the right one here, and you'll be good to go. So, okay, so if all you wanted to do is change the balance, you could just reassemble, making sure that the bearings that have this open side, that's always facing up towards the handle, there's a smoother side to each bearing. Let's dump them. Here's the smooth side, here's the open side. You always want the smooth side facing the blade. So if all you wanted to do, I'd put the bearings back so it looks like this. The races, let's pop this out again. These raceways are always facing the bearing. You want the balls of the bearing to ride in those grooves. Okay, so if all you want to do is change the balance, I would put my weights back in, take these out. I'm gonna pop my tungsten cubes back in real quick. And you can just put the scales back on, reassemble in reverse order. In this video though, we are going to clean the bearings and do a full reassembly so you know exactly how to put them back together. So I'll just take the blade out and I'm gonna use my hex key to just pop the race washers out, turn this over, get all the race washers and bearings out of the handle. If they don't come out, you can take the pivot out and then scoop them gently. So let's say you're getting a little bit of squeaky bearings, or your handle swing's not nice and smooth anymore. You might have just gotten some dirt in the bearings. So I'll just throw all of these in this little Tupperware. And I'm gonna add some 91% IPA until all the bearings are submerged. So you just give it a good swish around. I'll do this for, about a minute or two. And then I'll get a clean towel or paper towel, either way, and just set that down. And we're gonna put the bearings on here so they don't come in contact with a dirty surface. So I'll just scoop them all out. And now what you'll do, it's critically important, we're gonna clean each race washer individually. So what I'll do is I'm gonna flip each race washer so that the groove is facing up, and we're gonna clean that groove. Take a clean paper towel and put the groove into the paper towel like that. You can just use your thumb to twist it. And any grime in the bearings should come right off. So you can see that is all dirt and grime that was in the race washer. And then what I'll do is I'll just put it face up on the surface to dry. Do the next one. I'm cleaning out the groove of the race washer. That was a good one, pretty dirty in there. And I'm gonna put it groove face up to dry. And I'm just gonna repeat that for all of these. I'm going pretty fast for the sake of this video, but you're gonna wanna be thorough. It might take a few times. You might press it in and it's still dirty, and you move it to a clean spot of the towel and repeat until you don't see any dirt coming off that bearing washer. And that's all done. Let's give this another clean. Okay, and now we'll just take the bearings. I'm gonna check for a smooth rotation, the balls rotate. If your balls are not rotating smoothly at this point, just put it in between your fingers, the paper towel, we're just drying it off. Yeah, if the balls don't rotate smoothly at this point, you need new bearings. Typically, a good cleaning is all they need. But we'll do that for all the bearings. Put them in between my fingers in the paper towel, like so, and I'm just gonna give it a good clean. Dry it off. Rotate smooth, good to go. Repeat that for all the bearings. So I blazed through this. You might want to wait another 5 minutes for all the alcohol to evaporate off your bearings. Okay, I'm gonna put my towels away because we're ready to reassemble. First thing, just to make it easy, my magnets have made a mess of things. Let's put these away. I'm gonna cheat. I've got another hex wrench that I'm gonna use. Boop. Too easy. All right. So put my pivot back. And the next thing we'll do is we're just gonna separate these bearings just to make the assembly a breeze. So to do this, we'll take our blade and just like we discussed, I'm just gonna test each bearing. That one can't fit, so that goes in the handles. This one does fit, so we know that goes against the blade. We'll just gently pop it out with the hex key. Yeah, make sure I keep track of it. Gently pop it out and we'll put these ones here. Okay, this one won't fit. Put it there. This one does fit. This one won't fit. This one won't fit. So I know this one will fit. Boom. So you should have 4 of each type, 8 total. The bearings that don't fit are gonna have sort of this rounder lip around the counter bore, and those are gonna be touching the handles. The washers that do fit are gonna have this flatter, kind of wider area around the counter bore, and those are gonna be touching the blade. So to start, we'll take 2 of the race washers that didn't fit in the blade. We're gonna pop them in here. With the groove facing up. And then you're gonna take your lubricant. I use 10 weight nano oil. You can use pretty much any lubricant. There's a common myth that you shouldn't lubricate bearing valleys, and my recommendation is to just ignore those people because it's not true. You can use nano oil, KPL, super lube, pretty much any lubricant, any knife lubricant will work. I do recommend, just because the contact area of this bearing system is so high, you're gonna benefit from a lower viscosity, lower weight lube. So something like a 10 weight or a 5 weight lube is gonna perform better with the bearings than like an 85 weight thick, heavy lube that you would use for bushings. So I'm just gonna put a dash in each race washer, and then I'm gonna take 2 of my bearings, and I'm gonna look at the smooth side. The smooth side needs to face the blade. So in this case, I'm gonna put this open side facing down, smooth side facing up. And then I'm gonna take 2 of these race washers that did fit in the counter bore, and I'm gonna put those face down so that the groove is facing the bearing. Here's my groove or raceway, and that's gonna face the bearing. Now we're ready to put the blade on. You're gonna want the blade with the counter bore facing up. So the smooth side is gonna go down, counter bore, reinforced side facing up. Push that in, and then we're gonna take the other 2 race washers that fit in the counter bore, and we're just gonna pop them in. And I'll just push them down on my fingers to make sure I got the right ones. And then I'm gonna add just a dash of lube to the raceway. With lubricant, with bearings, at least this bearing system, less is more. Do not slather it around. Just 1 tiny drop is enough. And now we're gonna take our bearings. Here's the open side, and then the smooth side. And we're gonna go smooth side facing the blade. Smooth side facing the blade. We have 2 remaining race washers, and the raceway is going to be facing down towards the bearings. The bearing balls will ride in between the grooves on either side. So that's what it should look like now. And then we can just take the handle scales pop them back on. Take these little screws that came out of the base of the handle and just screw them down. And now I'm ready to pick up the Balisong again. I'm just gonna push in the hex nuts, lift it gently, and start screwing the pivots in. And I'm just gonna tighten it until I feel like a light resistance, and that's a good place to stop. Make sure my hex nuts are seated properly. And I'm gonna tighten until I can feel like a light resistance. At this point, I'll throw the bite marker on just so I can keep track of which handle I've tuned. And let's start with the bite marker. So this is what it should look like now. Let's take the bite handle and just do a swing test. You can see it's sticky, so I've over tightened it. So what I'll do is I'm just gonna loosen it like 1/8 of a turn. I'm gonna then push this hex nut into the table gently, holding not the pivot, but the sides of the handle. Push gently to make sure it's seated properly. I'm gonna pinch the handles together at the Zen pin and then repeat my handle test until I have smooth swing. And I think I need it a little bit looser. So I'm gonna take my hex key. You can actually do this with your finger or the hex key, whatever you prefer. You can grab the pivot and just, with your fingernails, and just undo it 1/8 of a turn. Push my hex nut into the table, pinch my Zen pins, and then repeat. And this feels pretty good, so I'm gonna leave it there. And we're gonna repeat the process for the other one. So this is the safe handle now, and I'm gonna do a swing test. Pretty sticky, so I've over tightened it. So I'm gonna take my hex key and I'm just gonna loosen it 1/8 of a turn, push the hex nut firmly into the table, pinch my Zen pins, make sure everything's lined up, and repeat the test. Still a little sticky. So I'm gonna do another 1/8 of a turn, make sure the hex nut's seated properly, make sure the Zen pins are seated properly, and then repeat. And that feels pretty good to me. So now I'm gonna check for play. So when it's tuned properly, you should be able to grip the handles just below the pivots and try and do a play test, and you should have 0 negligible or no noticeable play. And that doesn't have noticeable play, so I have free handle swing, so I know I've tuned it properly. So that's the end of this video. You just learned how to disassemble your Zipper V2, change out the weights to adjust the balance, clean the bearings, do a full disassembly, full reassembly, and tuning. Only other thing is if you happen to have the handle caps, you can adjust the balance on these two by taking a paper clip. I would take the handle cap face down, something like a paper clip, and you can just firmly push. And we'll do that to, let's say, 2 of the balls. Let's say I want to adjust the balance on this. It does take a little bit of force. The balls are in a socket so that they don't fall out while you're flipping or while you drop. So I just popped out 2 of the balls and I've got 1 left. Let's just do the 3rd ball here to be thorough. Push it down and boom. Now you could put these handle caps on to your zipper or another ballet just to protect the ends. It does add a little bit of weight, adds handle bias. If you want to pop the balls back in, I just toss them in there. Take your hex key and just push the ball into the socket. And you should hear like a little snap, feel it. And they're good to go. Thanks, guys.